Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post. Boeing fires diversity boss, then eliminates entire DEI department. Boeing should have done this years ago. They did not need to focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. They're an aerospace company. They make planes. They literally make planes and spacecraft. That is not a good mix for diversity. From the Daily Caller, problem-riddled Boeing axes its entire diversity division. Boeing is also just at the same time laying off 10% of their staff. They have 170,000 employees. Laying off 10% of your staff when you have 170,000 employees is a massive disruption. Perhaps they went and targeted the people they never should have hired in the first place, the people that weren't hired based on merit. Well, that's actually extremely unlikely. In doing this layoff, they're probably going to be getting rid of people that actually know what they're doing, with a mix of some of the people they never should have hired in the first place. From Bloomberg, Boeing to cut workforce by 10% as strike eats into reserves. Yes, they also have a strike going on, which means they can't get their work done properly. Okay, if I was a worker for Boeing, I would say you've got billions of dollars to waste on nonsensical projects, especially the diversity, equity, and inclusion work. You're hiring these people. They don't have the qualifications that I do. You could at least afford to pay me a little bit more. And that's a good argument. The problem is, this is a company that's actually in severe trouble. And when you work for a company that's in severe trouble, you have to watch how much you push these people because they could collapse. After the Hollywood strikes, a lot of those people didn't get their work back. From Zero Hedge, Boeing union urges members to lock in gains with new labor offer. And what the union knows a lot better than I could possibly know is what's really going on inside the company. Right now, Boeing can continue the way it's going. And if they get rid of this diversity nonsense, which they are doing, and focus on what they're actually good at and make sure people that stay at the company are qualified, they could pull through this and everyone can make their money and do just fine. But if things don't settle down for Boeing, it's just going to get worse and worse. And when I was talking about hiring unqualified people, I wasn't just saying that, because they're diverse, they're not qualified. Merit is merit. It doesn't matter what you look like, what your skin color is, your gender, or your sexual preference. But Boeing actually did just get in trouble for hiring people to work on rockets that were not qualified to work on those rockets. NASA caught them. Boeing was using underqualified workers to build rockets for spaceflight, according to a report from NASA released just this August. Do you think that was a diversity problem? Yes, I think that there's a 99.9% chance that's a diversity problem because they're so busy trying to hit quota numbers. They're bringing people in and they're bragging, we've increased this percentage of our workforce. We've increased that percentage of our workforce. But look at the work they're doing. And genuinely, I don't understand how it's not fraud if you get a contract with NASA to do work on rockets. And the labor and the materials that you put into those rockets, don't meet minimum appropriate standards. That's not right. That's a government contract. They really should face consequences for that. And they might. At least first things first, they're getting back to focusing on merit. From the Daily Caller, problem-riddled Boeing axes its entire diversity division. Top airline manufacturer Boeing dissolved its global diversity, equity, and inclusion division amid significant financial losses, union strikes, and scrutiny over safety and production issues, according to Bloomberg. The reorganization, which reassigned its DEI staff to Boeing's Employee Experience division, reflects CEO Kelly Ortberg's focus on consolidating operations as the company grapples with a number of problems, according to Bloomberg. And those staff that were in the DEI office being led by their DEI boss will be stuck into different human resources departments. Some of them will be laid off. Some of them won't be laid off, but they won't be in this focused office making trouble throughout the organization, insisting on ridiculous quota systems and hiring people to actually make airplanes and rockets that are not qualified to do that work. Sarah Lang Bowen, who previously helmed Boeing's DEI department, announced her departure on Thursday. In a LinkedIn post, Boeing expressed pride in her team's work, acknowledging both its challenges and accomplishments. Here's what she said on LinkedIn, and she actually does seem to have a fairly extensive professional background. This is not somebody that they just brought in and said, oh, we're just going to make you in charge of diversity and allow you to run completely rampant throughout the company. It does appear that her and her programs did run rampant throughout the company. But she was an accomplished employment lawyer. It's not like she didn't work as a lawyer for 20 years. It's just when these people get mixed into their diversity, equity, and inclusion, whether it's delivering substandard work deliberately on contracts just to give people certain opportunities they did not earn, or it's actually sending people into space on a rocket that isn't safe for them to return. Thank goodness Elon Musk was able to bring people back from space that got stuck there because of incompetence at Boeing. It's not like the people doing this don't know better. It's that they think these are prices that are worth paying as long as they don't personally pay them. Here's what she said. Career update. That's a positive way to look at it. Today I turn in my blue badge. It's been the privilege of my lifetime to lead equity, diversity, and inclusion at the Boeing Company these past 5+ years. Our team strived every day to support the evolving brilliance and creativity of our workforce. The team achieved so much, sometimes imperfectly, never easily, and dreamed of doing so much more still. All of it has been worth it. Has it really been worth it? 10% of the staff are laid off now as a result of the strike. Just as a result of the strike, there are going to be more layoffs, unfortunately. How else do you come back from the destruction that they've made of their company? They're even looking at selling their space division. From Zero Hedge, new Boeing CEO may clean house with sale of space unit. If you're a diversity hire, or you're even a good hire that earned their position, you got your position based on merit, and you're part of that space unit, your job is heavily at risk. The space unit, everyone knows, is in trouble. You don't have to follow Boeing every day to understand, like, if you strand people in space, that's not a good thing. Who's going to want to buy this space unit? If they buy it, they're going to buy it for parts. It doesn't mean everyone's getting laid off. It means that everyone who can't do the job of 2 or 3 people is going to be laid off. People could lose pensions over this. What a disaster. So it wasn't worth it, but to her, it was worth it. Because behind every effort, there's been a person, an unheard voice, an idea waiting to bloom. An unheard voice, an idea waiting to bloom? Is this kindergarten? I think once you get out of kindergarten and you get into the 1st or 2nd grade, a teacher or two in the comments could back me up, we don't really talk that way anymore. Because even children get more mature enough to understand, hey, you have to learn things, and your teacher or your mommy wants to hear you out. But this is not an attitude to take to a serious manufacturing company, especially not one involved in aerospace manufacturing. The people make the company what it is, and it's the people who will restore it to a state of trusted excellence. To all my Boeing teammates, thank you for the gift of your wisdom and heart. As I summon my next adventure, I'll be rooting for you with my entire being. Well, that's a nice thing to say, generally speaking, but a lot of people have been very hurt by this. Personally, financially, their dignity. How could you hire people that are not qualified to work next to people who are qualified, people who've put the time in, people who've put the years in, and think that that could ever work out for the best? And what would have happened with all of this incompetence at Boeing? What would have happened to those people in space who were stranded because of Boeing and because they weren't focused on what they should be focused on? Who would have rescued them? Batman? He doesn't even fly. Does Batman have a spaceship? That might have worked. Even Superman. If Superman was to fly out and try to save the astronauts. Superman can do it, but the people can't survive space. They wouldn't have survived re-entry. It's as ridiculous as that. If it wasn't for Elon Musk and his SpaceX business, those 2 people would be dead, which is terrible, but it's true. Critics of DEI argue such policies encourage discrimination by favoring certain demographics, and this scrutiny is part of a larger trend, with activists targeting corporations and calling for a shift away from DEI priorities, according to Bloomberg. Their new CEO, Ortberg's vision for Boeing includes a sweeping reduction of the executive layer and an overall 10% cut in the workforce as he seeks to reorient the company's mission. Boeing and its shareholders are facing $1 billion loss, and workers and suppliers are set to lose $350 million from the International Association of Machinists Union strike that began September 13th. Under previous CEO Dave Calhoun, Boeing pledged to increase black representation to 20% by 2025, with the company reporting a 7.5% increase in black employment by 2023, according to Bloomberg. Well, that's a great accomplishment. This is not about black people. This is about people being qualified or not qualified. Why not just go for 100%? How could you do this? How could you not deliver on government contracts with the labor that you're contracted to utilize? You're not allowed to deliver rockets or anything else to a government knowing that you haven't properly supervised and produced something to a certain quality standard. You're going to push that just because you're trying to put in diverse employees? I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but it certainly seems like it. Well, Boeing remains committed to recruiting and retaining top talent and creating an inclusive work environment where every teammate around the world can perform at their best while supporting the company's mission, according to Boeing, and Bloomberg reported it. The company faced significant scrutiny earlier this year for an incident involving an Alaska Airlines 737 MAX 9 flight where a door plug was torn off in mid-air, prompting a federal investigation. A Senate report published in September found that Boeing prioritized rapid production over quality and failed to offer sufficient training based on a 2024 special audit by the FAA and an investigation conducted by a U.S. Senate subcommittee. A NASA report released in August found that Boeing employed workers lacking sufficient qualifications for constructing their space rockets. How could you do that? Leading to quality control problems. NASA's audit suggested a shortage of skilled aerospace professionals on the Space Launch System project contributed significantly to delays and increased costs. Because it's not cheaper to hire people that don't know what they're doing with a task like this. Before these incidents, the FAA's report in February revealed potential safety issues in the company's operations after two tragic crashes in 2018 and 2019, which resulted in 346 deaths, leading the company to plead guilty to criminal fraud in July. Former Boeing senior manager and whistleblower Ed Pearson previously criticized executives for ignoring his warnings about quality control risks. Here's what their NASA report found. Efforts by Boeing to provide in-house training have been inadequate, and significant quality control deficiencies persisted at their assembly facility. But for example, during our visit to the facility in April 2023, we observed the liquid oxygen fuel tank dome, a critical component of the SLS Core Stage 3, segregated and pending disposition on whether and how it can safely be used going forward due to welds that did not meet NASA specifications. According to NASA officials, the welding issues arose due to Boeing's inexperienced technicians and inadequate work order planning and supervision. The lack of a trained and qualified workforce increases the risk that Boeing will continue to manufacture parts and components that do not adhere to NASA requirements and industry standards. The NASA requirements are there to protect the rocket, like the stuff that you're making, that sometimes there are human beings in, but other times it's just like a very expensive government effort. You can't just fraudulently throw the stuff together and say, hey, we're diverse, and then sell it to the government. NASA said Boeing gives work instructions to technicians, quote, that lack explicit details on how to perform the task and with what tools. And they do this when building components for a rocket, with some technicians having to dig through mountains of documents to get proper guidance, according to the report. NASA said the quality control deficiencies could increase safety risk for the spacecraft. Well, by definition, they have to increase safety risk for the spacecraft. Sometimes we've all rushed through work and life and tried to just finish something up quick, even though maybe we didn't have enough time that we'd like to spend on it. Okay, but it's not like we stranded people in space and left them to die. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.